Okay, I'm going to do a quick lesson on multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers. There is a trick to multiplying and dividing mixed numbers that you need to know, and if you don't know it, it's going to make Ed Ready just getting through that kind of miserable. So let me share my whiteboard, and like I've said in the other videos I've made, I have this touchscreen computer, which has been a blessing because it does allow me to write on a whiteboard, but it's messy. Okay, so let's start with multiplying fractions. So if you were to read a textbook, a lot of textbooks will give you like the symbolic definition, and they would say something like, if A over B is multiplied by C over D, the product would be A times C over B times D. So basically you multiply across. Now this is different from cross multiplying. You're literally multiplying your numerators and then you're going to multiply your denominators. So multiply numerators, multiply denominators, and then reduce. Now, there is an issue with this method, okay? When you multiply two numbers, your product is a bigger number, right? And so reducing fractions can be kind of difficult all on its own, but if you're getting these huge numbers, like if you're getting 3- and 4-digit numerators and 3- and 4-digit denominators, reducing can be nearly impossible. So the Jillian method is the same thing at the end of the day, but we reduce as we go. We don't wait till the very end to reduce. So we want to cancel common factors, top versus bottom. So if you have a factor anywhere in the numerator with a factor anywhere in the denominator, you can cancel them. So top versus bottom, then multiply across. At the end of the day, these are the exact same methods, but if you reduce as you go, it makes your life so much easier, because anytime you multiply, divide, add, or subtract fractions, the final answer needs to be reduced, okay? So with multiplication, it can get nasty really fast, okay? So I encourage you to reduce as you go, then multiply across, okay? So let's look at an example. So let's say I have 4/15 times 3/8. Okay, so what I do is I start with any of the numbers that are in the numerator, so 4 or 3, and I look to see if there are factors of 4 or factors of 3 that'll divide out of anything in the denominator. So let's start with 4. 4 has common factors of, or not common factors, it has factors of 1, 4, and 2. Do any of those numbers divide into 15 or 8? Well, yeah, it turns out that 4 itself will divide into 8. So I'm going to divide 4 by itself. When I divide 4 by 4, I get 1. I'm going to divide 8 by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Right? So I'm going to clean this up. You can do this kind of all in one problem, but I'm going to clean it up just so everybody can see. At this point, I have 1/15 times 3/2. Okay? So now I want to look at the 3 in the numerator. Does 3 divide into either 15 or 2? Well, sure, it does not divide into 2, but it does divide into 15. So I'm going to divide 3 by itself. 3 divided by 3 is 1. I'm going to divide 15 by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And then I'm going to clean this up. Okay, my numerators, if I look here, I multiply and I get 1 times 1. My denominators are now 5 and 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. So the product of 4/5 times 3/8 is 1/10. Okay? Well, let's try another one. How about this one? Let's do 6/55 times 5/8. Okay? So again, I want to look anywhere in the numerator and denominator and see if there are common factors that could be divided out of both. So let's start with a 5. Okay, 5 certainly will not divide into 8, but does 5 divide into 55? Turns out it does. So 5 and 55 are both divisible by 5. So I'm going to divide 5 by 5. I get 1. And then 55 divided by 5 is 11. Okay, again, I'm going to clean up just so it's nice and easy to see what's happening. Now I have 6/11 times 1/8. Okay, so let's look at the 6 in the numerator. Okay, factors of 6 are 1, 6, 2, and 3. So I want to know if any of those factors, with the exception of 1, so 6, 2, and 3, do those go into 11 or 8? Well, 11 is not divisible by 6, 11 is not divisible by 2, 11 is not divisible by 3. Okay, so let's look at the 8. 8 is not divisible by 6, 8 is not divisible by 3, but 8 is divisible by 2. So 6 and 8 can be divided by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, 8 divided by 2 is 4. Let's clean this up one more time. I have 3/11 times 1/4. If I look at the top and the bottom, there are no longer any common factors. Factors in the top would just be 1s and 3s. 3s don't go into 11 or 4, so I would go ahead and multiply across, and the final answer here would be 3/44. Okay, not bad. Let's try another one. Let's say that I have 1/6 times 3/10 times 25/16. You will not always be asked to just multiply two numbers. You could multiply 3, 4, 5. You can multiply 15 numbers, okay? So let's go ahead and practice where we have 3 numbers. We're looking for common factors anywhere in the numerator with anything in the denominator. 1s don't count. So let's start with a 3. The only factors of 3 would be 1 and 3. So let's look in the denominator and see if there's a place to divide out of 3. Well, 3 will not go into 16 evenly. 3 will not go into 10 evenly, but 3 will go into 6. So let's go ahead and divide. 3 divided by itself is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Let me clean up. So I now have 1/2 times 1/10 times 25/16. So the only factor that counts now in the numerator is the 25. The ones we never divide by 1. So 25, factors of 25 would be 25 or 5. So 25 and 5 don't go into 2. 25 or 5 don't go into 16. But 5 will go into 10. So what we want to do is divide 25 and 5 by 10. No, 25 and, crap, I just said that wrong. So what we want to do now, sorry, is divide 25 and 10 by 5. I'm sure that was very confusing. Please forgive me. So 25 divided by 5 is 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So let me clean it up again. I now have 1/2 times 1/2 times 5/16. So the numerator of 5, will it go into 2? No. Will it go into the other 2? No. Will 5 go into 16 evenly? No. So at this point, we multiply across. My numerator is going to be 1 times 5. My denominator is going to be 2 times 2 times 16. So 16 times 2 is 32. 32 times 2 is 64. If you need to pause the video here to double check your multiplication, please do so. All right. So at the end of the day, when you're multiplying fractions, you want to look for any fractions that can cancel top to bottom. All right. Once you divide out those fractions or those factors, then you multiply all of your numerators, multiply all of your denominators, and it never hurts to just double check one last time to make sure your final answer is produced. All right. So next up is division. And there is a little tiny trick to dividing fractions. Don't forget that in EdReady, you can go to the Learn feature in EdReady, and they've got their own video. And their videos are going to be much better. They don't make really stupid mistakes like I did a few minutes ago. They speak a little smoother. They've probably got a really nice script, and they can edit. Their videos have a good explanation. They also work with Khan Academy on the worked examples, so you can see more worked examples. Okay, so hopefully between this video and then what you have in EdReady, you'll be covered. So here's the deal with dividing. If I have the fraction a over b, and it is divided by the fraction c over b, this translates to a over b times. So what we do with division is we actually convert it to a multiplication problem. But we can't just multiply the two fractions that were originally divided. So the way we compensate for that is we multiply the first fraction by what's called the reciprocal of the second fraction. And when you're dealing with fractions, reciprocals are pretty easy. You just take the fraction and you flip it upside down. So instead of dividing by C over D, we're going to multiply by D over C. So basically, you multiply the first fraction by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So it really just turns into multiplication, and luckily, if you look at the first part of this video, you can figure out how to multiply. So this becomes AD over BC. So make sure you convert to multiplication, and then you follow the exact same steps that we just learned for multiplication. So let's look at an example. So let's say that we have 3 over 2 divided by 14 over 5. The very first thing you need to do is convert this to multiplication, okay? So the first fraction, 3 over 2, stays the same. And then I multiply, but I can't just willy-nilly change division to multiplication. That doesn't work. So the way we compensate for changing to multiplication is we multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So the reciprocal of 14/5 is 5/14. Now, one thing I hope you're going to notice about this fraction is if you look at the division, 3/2 divided by 14/15, your gut is going to think, oh, well, the 2 and 14 reduce. No, they don't. You cannot do any of that reducing stuff where you cancel out common factors until you have written it as multiplication. So if you wanted to go ahead and reduce the 2 and 14, that would be incorrect, okay? You have to wait until you're in this stage right here of multiplication, and then you want to look to see if you have any common factors that could divide out. So let's look. In the numerator, we have 3. So the only factors of 3 are 3 and 1. 3 does not go into 2. 3 does not go into 14. So then we would look at the 5. Okay, the only factors of 5 are 1 and 5. 5 does not go into 2. 5 does not go into 14. This tells me there's nothing to reduce, so I just go ahead and multiply across. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 14 is 28. So there's my final answer. All right, so 3/2 divided by 14/5 is equal to 15/28. All right, let's try one more. Let's try 8 over 7 divided by 2 over 9. All right, so we want to go ahead and write this as multiplication. So first fraction stays the same. I multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction, which is 9/2. And then I just proceed with regular steps for multiplication. So looking at the numerators, let's say we look at 8. Factors of 8 would be 1, 8, 2, and 4. Well, 1, 8, 2, and 4 won't go into 7, but hopefully you'll notice that 8 and 2 are both divisible by 2, so let's do that. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So now we have 4/7 times 9 over 1. So now looking at the numerators, we've got factors of 2 and 4, or we've got factors of 3 and 9. None of those will go into 7. So we multiply across, and we get 36/7. Now, here is an area that is sometimes difficult for students. This answer is perfectly fine, okay? It's wonderful. You don't have to really worry about it. But sometimes your answer choices will only be mixed numbers. And you can see here, our answer is an improper fraction, okay? Also, when you're dealing with word problems, it's very common to write your answer as a mixed number because that's just going to make a lot more sense than an improper fraction, okay? For me personally, at this point, I would be perfectly happy with 36 over 7. If it was a word problem, I would want the mixed number. Ed ready, just go with the flow, okay? If they tell you to write your answer as a mixed number, by all means, write it as a mixed number. If they don't specify, the improper fraction should be okay. But just for the sake of practice, let's remind ourselves how to convert 36/7 into a mixed number. So 36 divided by 7, you quite literally take your 36 and you divide it by 7. Well, let's see, 7 times 5 is 35, so we could say 7 goes into 36 5 times. You then take the 5 and the 7 and multiply them. So 5 times 7 is 35, and I have 1 left over. That means 36/5 is equal to 5 and 1/7. All right, so if we go back a page, 36/7 is fine, or we could have 5 and 1/7. Okay, word problems, 5 and 1/7 is going to be more appropriate. Otherwise, they're the same. All right. And I was about to say, any questions about division, because I'm so used to being in a classroom, but here we are. Moving on. All right, the next big thing you have to understand is multiplying or dividing mixed numbers, okay? Now, there is a trick here. Turns out we cannot actually multiply and divide mixed numbers, all right? We can only multiply and divide fractions. The great news is you can take a mixed number and you can always write it as an improper fraction, and this is an absolutely necessary step, okay? So the absolute 100% first step you have to take here is convert to improper fractions. And then after you have improper fractions, multiply or divide like normal. Okay. So let's look at an example or two of each. All right. So let's say that we have 3 1/5 times 2 3/4. Okay. We're multiplying, we have mixed numbers. Before we can do anything else, we absolutely have to convert these to improper fractions. So, quick reminder on how to convert these to improper fractions. You take the denominator, you multiply it by the whole number, you add the numerator, and then you keep the denominator. So, for the first fraction, or the first mixed number, we have 3 times 5 plus 1 all over 5. For the second mixed number, we have 4 times 2 plus 3 over 4. So what we're really dealing with, 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is 16. So we're really multiplying 16/5 times 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So we're dealing with 16/5 times 11/4. Now we can follow the normal steps for multiplication. So 11 is prime. The only factors of 11 are 1 and 11. 11 does not go into 5. 11 does not go into 4. Let's look at the 16. Factors of 16 would be 16, 8, 2, 4. Okay? Well, 16, 8, 2, and 4 don't go into 5. But hopefully you notice that 4 is one of the factors of 16. So let's divide 16 and 4 by 4. 4 divided by itself is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So now I can just multiply across. There's nothing else that's going to cancel. So 4 times 11 is 44. 5 times 1 is 5. Now, this is another area that's sometimes hard for students to deal with. Is the final answer 44/5 okay? Sure, why not? However, a lot of times if you start with mixed numbers, you need to end with a mixed number. So while this is absolutely accurate, this is the final answer, it's not uncommon to be expected to write your final answer as a mixed number since we started with mixed numbers here. So 44 divided by 5. Well, 5 goes into 44 8 times. If you need to pause the video to double check that, that's fine. 8 times 4 is 40. So I subtract the 40 and I'm left with 4. So that tells me that 44/5 is the same as 8 and 4/5. Okay, if this was a word problem, definitely use 8 and 4/5. Just plain old multiplication, it's kind of up in the air, but go with whatever Ed Ready says. If Ed Ready says a mixed number, write it as a mixed number. If Ed Ready says an improper fraction, write it as an improper fraction. Just read your directions, okay? Let's try a division really quick and then we'll wrap up this video. So let's say I have 2 5/6 divided by 4 6/7. Okay, a lot going on here. You've 1 got division, and then 2 you've got mixed numbers. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to convert these to improper fractions. Then we're going to convert to multiplication, and then we'll finish the problem out from there. So improper fractions. Denominator times whole number. So 6 times 2 is 12. And then 12 plus 5 is 17. So we have 17/6 divided by. For the second mixed number, we take 7, the denominator, times the whole number 4. Well, 7 times 4 is 28. 28 plus 6 is 34 over 7. Okay, so we took care of the first step. We're no longer dealing with mixed numbers. We have improper fractions. Second step is converting your division to a multiplication. First fraction stays the same, and then we multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. Okay. And now you just look for common factors to divide out, and then you multiply across. So 7, let's start there. The only factors of 7 are 7 and 1. Well, 7 does not go into 6. 7 does not go into 34. If you need to pause the video to double check that, please do so. So we know we can't reduce by 7, but let's look at the 17. 17's factors are only 1 and 17. Neither of the, well, 1 doesn't count, but 17 does not go into 6. 17, however, does go into 34. So if I take 17 and divide it by itself, I get 1. 34 divided by 17 is 2. So then I can multiply across. 1 times 7 is 7. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay? So this video, just a quick recap. Go back a few pages. Multiplying fractions, you multiply across and then reduce. However, in Jillian's world, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier if you try to reduce as you go. So look for common factors top to bottom, divide them out, and then multiply across. And you can see the examples we did. Dividing fractions is a little weird. We can't actually divide fractions, but we can multiply. So what we need to do is convert division to multiplication. The way we do that is we multiply the first fraction by the reciprocal of the second. And remember, to find a reciprocal of a fraction, you just put the fraction upside down. We did a couple of examples of that. One thing that is weird when you're dealing with multiplication or division, if your final answer is improper, that's okay, depending, okay? If it's a word problem, write your answers instead of as improper fractions, always write them as mixed numbers. Otherwise, go with the flow. Whatever Ed Ready wants is how you need to write your answer. Next, multiplying and dividing mixed numbers. We can't actually multiply and divide mixed numbers. Instead, we have to write them as improper fractions and then follow the steps for multiplying and dividing. And that's going to be a big deal. If you try to multiply the whole numbers and then multiply the fractions, you won't get the right answer, okay? So they have to be, they have to be improper fractions and then follow the regular steps for multiplying and dividing. All right, so that's a brief overview of multiplying and dividing fractions and mixed numbers. Generally speaking, fractions and mixed numbers, when you're dealing with multiplication, it's not so bad. It's the addition and subtraction that people don't generally like. With that said, hopefully this video helps. Remember, you can go into Ed Ready, go to the Learn features. Okay, there's a ton of information in the Learn features. Look at the videos. Okay, their videos are good. They're professional. Look at the worked examples through Khan Academy. Read the topic text. Okay, they go through definitions and explanations. They sometimes even have practice problems in the topic text. And then you can go through the review and practice. Okay, please, if you're struggling, reach out to me. Let me know what you need. You can join a Zoom meeting, or you can meet with me one-on-one. Most weeks I'm going to be on campus on Mondays, so if anybody feels like they need to meet up with me face-to-face, let me know, and I'll let you know the next time I'm going to be on campus. Otherwise, hopefully these help. If not, let me know, and I'll try to do more. All right, take care.